fenced-off yard. There's a truck belonging to a logistics company parked next to the gate. You've seen it. Bright light from a building behind the fence reflects off its hood. You're not yet equipped for that expedition. Looking up at the sky, cold water dripping from your hat. A yard. Rain falls onto the roof of a woodshed. Coal leaks into a puddle beneath the feet of a dead man. He swings from a tree, a gaping hole in his bare, rotting chest. The sky slowly slides above you, raining down. The young woman exhales. There's menthol tobacco in the air. For Gloria. Soon these clouds will all fall down as even greater rain. Spring will come. 2 more months, maybe less. It's time. A warm column of air rises around you, up to the falling rain, encircling the building you stand on. You feel its twisting shape, bits of paper and birds on the thermal, along with several million liters of water, all rising back into the great Elysium sky. Nothing happens, absolutely nothing. A mass of droplets above the planetary body, colorless, merging into another, raining down on you. How hard can it be? You were told she's north of the village, and this place is a peninsula. You've already mapped it out while checking the traps, so you know the place. Trying to talk to the wind, the city. Whatever you thought would happen did not, and now you're just standing there in the pale of the morning, with your hands fallen to your side. You should be warm with your hat and your coat, but you notice that you don't have any shoes on. You feel like a traveler ill-equipped to survey the landscape you have endeavored to explore. The melting snow seeps through your thin clothes. The toes of your bare feet are growing numb. At least your hair is protected from getting wet and sticking together. You look around. Your teeth chatter as the snow melts on your exposed skin, running down your chest and your back in icy rivulets. Your bare feet are growing numb. Your hat is of little help. To distract yourself, you look around. You're warm in your coat, though your cold, damp hair sticks to your head unpleasantly, and your bare feet are growing numb. You survey the landscape around you. The melting snow seeps through your thin clothes. The toes of your bare feet are growing numb. You look around. Your teeth chatter as the snow melts on your exposed skin, running down your chest and your back in icy rivulets. Your bare feet are growing numb. To distract yourself, you look around. A fenced-off yard. There's a truck belonging to a logistics company parked next to the gate. You've heard about it. Bright light from a building behind the fence reflects off its hood. The sky slowly slides above you, snowing down. The young woman exhales. There's menthol tobacco in the snowy air. A column of air rises around you, encircling the building you stand on. You feel its twisting shape, bits of paper and birds on the thermal, along with several million liters of water as the snow melts on the ground, all rising up into the great Elysium sky. Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. A mass of droplets above the planetary body, colorless, merging into one another, scattering snow over the city and the sea. Trying to talk to the wind, the city. Whatever you thought would happen did not. And now you're just standing there with your hands fallen to your side. Trying to talk to the wind, the city. Whatever you thought would happen did not. And now you're just standing there in the dusk hour with your hands fallen to your side. The great district hums in the falling rain. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Grand Couronne, from Precinct 41 to Boogie Street, forking into the rain-swept horizon. She nods, then looks down at her hands. No frostbite, sure, but a web of thin red cracks around the wrists. She is visibly embarrassed by the delicacy of her skin. Suddenly, She smiles at some thought that had just come to her, nods to the surgeon again, and sprints down the stairs, gloveless, into the falling snow. And all she gets, too. The coastal wind beats down hard on the cold room door, outside. Splashes of waves make the balcony slippery, a slight sensation of static electricity as before a storm. A miniature conference is taking place inside, and you are the subject. Somewhere, just out of earshot, a glass bottle explodes. A man's voice shouts, "You fucking kids!" And then the screech of sneakers pounding the pavement. A girl's voice yelling, "Got him!" And a painfully shrill laugh piercing the air. A man on high heels stumbles out of a basement club, music blasting over the entire district. It's chilly, and as the chemicals hit his nervous system, 1,000 shivers ripple through his body. A cool breeze coming off the bay wraps itself around the Capeside apartments in a nearly forgotten part of that glorified construction site, surrounded by rusted pieces of scaffolding and walls of faded tarpaulin. A detective of the RCM debates the intricacies of an abstruse theory with a pair of university students. Now the breeze has subsided. All is still except for the last bits of steam rising from the coffee pot. A cold wind whips at the canvas. From far below, the sounds of waves smashing themselves against the rocks. You are exposed. Has it gotten cold in here? Your arms seem to be covered in goose flesh. Somehow, you only now realize that the temperature has been dropping steadily for the last half hour. A low-pressure system is gathering itself over the bay. It's begun to tug violently at the tarpaulins, the attitude of a priest bearing one of the holy relics of his faith. Though it is long out of service, its power is evident to him. A shift in temperature, the air chills around you. Dust settles on the stony floor. A former architect stands before a slice of window, a room plan in her hand. A cold wave has made the air in the building stand still and frozen, with temperatures falling down to -20 degrees Celsius, is red from the cold. She's breathing on her fingers, clasping the plan. Traces of sadness are visible in her expression. Faint pencil lines on paper depict the same place, but a missing eastern wall connects the room with the neighboring apartment. Ideas for arranging the furniture have been jotted down. It's clean and empty, with new tapestry embellishing the walls. A standard HB graphite pencil has fallen off a three-legged stool in the middle of the room. So many walls all over Martinez, weather-worn, cracked, their paint peeling. The streets ran red with blood. Dust swirled above the ruins. The pressure change from artillery fire ripped people apart in the top floors of the building above you. Anyway, you do it, sector by sector. Go over the whole peninsula. Ask the locals. Enter the places which you can enter first. And then there's the church. You look at the bell tower rising into the clouds. A prominent place to hide. But maybe she's reckless. How hard can it be? You were told she's north of the village and this place is a peninsula. Look around. West of here, there are people talking. Who could it be? You cup your ear and think. First, you need to tune into the coast. Get to know its residents. Then you can search where you can't enter. Bunkers, storm drainage. This building here. You can always come back and talk to the wind again. Look where it already got you. Even though you're sure you succeeded, all is quiet. There is no cold hand brushing against your forehead, no rustle in the reeds. The wind has died down. The ruin in front of you is silent as a tomb. Walk the coast, the old boardwalk, the reeds. You can always come back here and talk to the wind again. Look where it already got you. You felt it before, when it rained in Martinez, and you felt the cold of the rain. The feeling persists. It has been in you ever since. A breeze, like a quiet sigh, moves over you. The cool air breaks across your body. It brings the salt of the sea into your lungs. Go to the children of the big sea. The wind rushes away, leaving you where you were, on the rotting boards of the felled building. Boy-child freedom. Boy-child justice. Suddenly, there's a sigh, carried on the molecules around you, moving, flowing from high pressure to low pressure, like that of a woman emptying her lungs. She wraps the collapsing stone box in front of you in her breath, flowing through it. Listen to the wind, but for what? Ruby whistling, the crackle of her bonfire, some errant whisper, or a dog barking? What are you doing here? A terrible cold comes over you as you think the words. They echo in your skull. Alien suddenly, for what? A song carried on the breeze? Or children laughing far away? You walk and walk these city streets and deserted coast, and all it ever tells you is cold. Suddenly, all is quiet. There is no cold hand brushing against your forehead, no rustle in the reeds. The wind has died down or gone behind a corner. You only hear distant waves washing the coast, trying to talk to the wind or the city. Whatever you thought would happen did not. And now you're just standing there with your hands fallen to your side. For what? God? God is very, very silent. Too silent. Even the wind seems tired. In through the collapsed roof, flowing down a concrete staircase to the basement, sweeping away footprints in the dust on the stairs. And then the beach below the boardwalk. Its winding tunnels, a whisper away. Suddenly, there's a sigh, carried on the molecules around you, moving, flowing from high pressure to low pressure, like that of a woman emptying her lungs. She wraps the collapsing stone box in front of you in her breath, flowing through it. Run. To the church. Home. Anywhere but here. Anything but calling her again. A drop of sweat runs down your nose, and in it you see the Martinez Inlet, wrapped in the night. In the abandoned fish market, 3 figures standing in a spectacular light show. A large, loud woman is pointing an empty firearm at the other 2. She doesn't want to listen, or even to be heard. A drop of sweat runs down your nose, and in it you see the Martinez Inlet, wrapped in the night. In the abandoned fish market, 2 figures face each other in a spectacular light show. One of them is forced to stare into the 3 empty barrels of a gun. Not an uncommon sight in the neighborhood. 2 seagulls circle in the sky. You look up and think, really? Or was there a 4th prototype that remains hidden in the mausoleums below Coal City? You feel the tiny hairs on the back of your neck rise up, as if someone's standing right behind you. Outside, the wind howls in from across the bay. The building at Rue de Saint-Ghislain stands like a matchbox on its side, with men inside, like little wooden sticks, ready to catch fire. A panicking woman squeezes the pendant around her neck until it leaves a mark inside her palm. A man, a few meters away, stands frozen with a key in his hand. Somewhere inside, a spider is spinning its web, radiating outwards from you. The suzerain Revachol, with a radius of 80 kilometers, still the crown jewel of this Isola would be barely visible. No, Coal City is worse. A charred limb. Rain falls on its slick black streets. And then there's the burnt-out quarter in the heart of Jamrock. Is it cold in this bookstore? Or is it just you? Your head feels light and dizzy. A cold breeze caresses your flesh. Monstrous buildings loom over Grand Coudron. A cold wind howls in the empty halls of homes built upon delusions. There is no life in Grand Coudron. No one can afford to live there. The shop around you feels ancient suddenly, damp and saturated by the coastal air. The books are rotting. A great cold lives here. And there, too, 1,200 meters away on the urban coast, the dark shape of a church is reflected on the water, calling. Not for her, not for him, not for Revachol, and not for Elysium. Just like promised, you've stood here for what seems like eons, guzzling the sickly fumes of lorries and carriages. On an island on the river Esperance, a small woman, all skin and bones, sits in a room filled with audio equipment. Thousands of tiny lights are reflected back from her prescription lenses like stars in the dark. A shiver runs through you as you look to your left, toward the silence. The voice again, more urgent now. Nay. The wind pushes a piece of tear across the cracked tiles. From the north comes the malicious laughter of two children. From behind you, a low, spectral voice whispers, nay. Cold air seeps in through the crack in the glass, cooling the sweat on your forehead. Makes you shudder. Cold air, tendons, snapped the cords keeping the boy in place. A little longer and it would be floating somewhere out in the open sea. Yes, spindly extremities have been here. Snap the cords keeping the boy in place. A little longer and it will be floating somewhere out in the open sea. Moves across the water, leaving no traces. You're cold again, as always. It's just rapid movement across the water. It leaves no trace. A whisper. Splendor. The wind picks up here, near the Cape's end, surrounding the narrow strip of land from 3 cardinal directions. It's cold for this time of year. A cold gust of air dries your sweaty face, and you look to the dark shadow of the felled building in the distance, drawing you to it. What a strange sensation. Once this is done, should you ask the wind again? The later it gets, the colder. Remnants of the camp can still be seen in the sand. The fire that's gone out. You feel strange, somehow. A cold gust of air dries your sweaty face, and you look to the dark shadow, the felled building in the distance, drawing you to it. What a strange sensation. Once this is done, should you try to ask again? A cold gust of air dries your sweaty face, and you look to the dark shadow of the felled building in the distance, drawing you to it. What a strange sensation. Once this is done, should you ask the wind again? When this district was booming, the reeds were kept at bay. Nothing obscured the freshly painted facades. Nowhere for drunks and adventurous teenagers to hide. Now only the wind blows. The constant, distant song. Louder on this part of the coast. Nearer somehow. And there's that cold again. Always the cold. A tub warm with water. White with soap. A man bathes while radio waves transmit the lottery numbers. 4, 18, 21, 4, 1. A modern washing machine rattles a drawer full of silverware. Number 312D. Young girls used to come here, huddled up, hoping for more warmth than their thin coats give them. The bus took them to school. It has not run for 8 years. There were not enough girls to sustain its cost. Craters pocked the surface. Children played in them until heavy trucks full of black pitch rolled in. The landowners have filled the craters with money. It is a vital artery of the flow of trade. Tragedy comes from the wheels of a fast RCM vehicle, hurrying to work. The cold washes over you. The sound of the sea has grown distant. The wind moves the aerosol. A detective stands behind the boom barrier. A breeze moves a curl of his hair. A drop in temperature, an easy flow of air. An empty street. Before you, a thoroughfare unjammed with lorries. No more drivers smoking on hitch steps. Just silence. Chemically sweetened. Across the road, a forgotten bus stop. Corrosion has opened a hole in its roof. An elm tree watches over the building. Its branches are dripping with rain and snow. The road is smooth and motley. Craters filled with a black asphalt. The asphalt first laid is grey already. A row of tenements are under construction in the distance. The pox is completely wild now. Evergreen thickets covered in snow and industrial dust. Feral dogs and even wolves roaming in packs. The police try to keep the deepest corners cordoned off. Heavy drug users do slip through and hole up in the old military hospital, hoping to find something to get high on among the hastily abandoned supplies, or just to overdose in peace. A line of motor garages with armored carapaces hunched in the cold. A mechanic is hard at work, patching up bullet holes in the side of a Capri 40. These are the garages of Precinct 41. Snow settles on the roof of the repurposed silk mill. It serves as your station. Shivering RCM personnel hurry in and out of the main entrance. Winter, slow to let go of Revachol. Flecks some more wet snow from above. Around you, the snow continues to fall. To the west, the ocean swells. The raised motorway, 881, separating Martinez from Jamrock. Vehicles whoosh past one another day and night, while those who reside in the labyrinthine alleyways beneath the motorway attempt to carry on with their lives in the snow and the slush. And south of the 881 is the pox. And to think, it seemed as though it were already spring. The stairs descend to central Jamrock. A man named Cooklove has a snow-covered stall there, in the market across the bridge. He sells kebab infested with fly larvae to your colleagues who believe eating it will make them immune to food poisoning. Snow falls on the utility district, the library, the florist, the Sarah Mauritian restaurant that offers homemade wine, and also on the brothels and drug dens and the chop shops of the Zemlyaki. All of this built around a lake that formed in a meteorite strike. At the center of this lake, there is a little ship. There are lights at the bottom of its hull. They are lights directed toward the seafloor, looking for something, like whiskers. The abandoned church, one of two remaining stave churches, which were collectively called Les Sept Sœurs. The other 6 sisters were destroyed during the Revolution. The abandoned church, its walls covered with hoarfrost now. One of Les Sept Sœurs. The other 6 sisters were destroyed during the Revolution. An abandoned church that's being turned into a dance club. 4 youths are hard at work there, making it ever harder core. A serpentine strip of land weaving its way into the Martinez Inlet. Unfortunates on the run from the law, from themselves, sometimes hide out on nearby islets. Little dots in the ocean that are occasionally submerged when the tide is high and the weather foul. Then there's ozone. But the snow falls too thick. You cannot see that far. The remains of a camp on a jagged piece of rock, a tent, old dishes and cutlery, long since abandoned. A hermit crab scuttles among the debris, looking for a new shell. Further out, the lights burn bright on Resurrection. Way beyond Martinez, a popular spa destination for ample-bodied ozone kids with equally ample pockets. The Bay of Revachol, vastness, great depth, over 1,200 meters at its deepest. Water, air-brinier than here. It is crisscrossed by huge cargo ships bearing company logos, wild pines, Zam, Maurien, and at the farthest reaches of the Bay of Revachol, the shadow of the coalition warship Archer, on perpetual patrol duty, ready to unleash artillery fire if you were to rise up against the market. You shudder. Yes, to peel the gold off with his fingernails. The snow falls lazily, making the beach sand paler still, mixing with the rust-colored sewage runoff. Below the old mines, L'Océan Municipal, Revachol's underground cemetery. Le Petit Rat braved the underground passageways, trying to get to Le Royaume. A chill comes over you, crawling down your back. The sand under your feet is wet. Somewhere in the south, tarpaulin flap in the wind. Someone stuffed a big old polar anorak into a concrete pipe under the boardwalk. It would keep you warm. You would probably never happen across it. But who knows? No need for anything anymore. Near, snow falls into dark water. She prays, though she doesn't believe. There is a hum in the air. That's all. The spring thaw will come in earnest, just not yet. It has been a cold year. All things waiting for spring will have to wait a bit longer. You're warm in your hat and your coat. Like a well-equipped explorer, you comfortably survey the white landscape. Looking up at the sky, melted snow dripping from your hair. The sky is full of great battleships. White clouds collide with one another, and the world is drenched with their debris. The melting snow seeps through your thin clothes. Grandmothers don't let their grandchildren out dressed so lightly in this weather. At least your hair is protected from getting wet and sticking together. You look around. Your teeth chatter as the snow melts on your exposed skin, running down your chest and your back in icy rivulets. Your hat is of little help. To distract yourself, you look around. You're warm in your coat, though your cold, damp hair sticks to your head unpleasantly. You should have a hat. You survey the landscape around you. The melting snow seeps through your thin clothes. Grandmothers don't let their grandchildren out dressed so lightly in this weather. You look around. Your teeth chatter as the snow melts on your exposed skin, running down your chest and your back in icy rivulets. To distract yourself, you look around. The canal you crossed to get here and beyond it. Martinez proper, the district the police forgot to police. There is laughter, lights, attempts at entrepreneurial activity, cynicism. Someone is scraping snow off their windshield at the roundabout, in the midst of which a statue of Philip III serves as a destination for grade school field trips and a fine perch for winter birds. Like all monuments, it's also a warning. 6-story ruins on the south side of the roundabout cast a long shadow over the profligate king. More winding coastlines lined with abandoned buildings, crumbling piers, salt water lapping at their dark piles, grey and red forgotten city blocks, what remains of the pre-revolutionary effort to gentrify the coast. The waters turn black, coal city in the shadow of San Martin, a boom town. Back when coal extracted from countless shafts near the city was needed to power Revachol. No more. The coal was supplanted by petroleum from the ocean floor and hydropower from the Esperance. Everything crumbled. These days, only the weakest remain in Coal City. Their hopes of getting rich linger in the defunct shafts under their feet. Layer upon layer of sand, poisoned with industrial runoff. The storm drainage, hidden bunkers. Rats scuttle. Coalition aerostatics hang like apparitions under the cloud cover. Occasionally, lights flash as they maneuver through the falling snow. More coalition aerostatics. Occasionally, lights flash as they maneuver through the falling snow. One large airship carries crates in its belly, where the Philippian kings were interred, with their doctors and their admirals. Mausoleums, burial chambers, leaf gold still remains on the double door of the morning. Children under 14, they go underground looking for artifacts to sell to foreign museums, and for fabled relics. Their parents let them. They go deeper. After rubies, melchiorite, lapis lazuli, plundered from Safre and Seol during the time of the suzerain. In the burial chambers of the kings, Grand old Philip, Guillaume II, and even in the mausoleum of Philip the Opulent. 2 kilometers underground, in a winding shaft along whose walls mirrors have been placed, so that daylight may eternally fall upon the richest of all the kings. The mausoleum contains untold quantities of gold, and that special, purest of the pure magenta cocaine, favored by Revacholian royalty. Few patira return from the shafts. Even fewer find what they're looking for. A small child steps out of the black tunnel with silver trinkets in her pockets. All around her, white snow on the extinguished coke furnaces, and on the weather-worn shacks where fathers beat their sons after drinking. The snow melts on your fingers, turning to water. Snow falls, and there is no answer. Some things are not for mortals to know. A fenced-off yard. There's a truck belonging to a logistics company parked next to the gate. Bright light from a building behind the fence reflects off its hood. The raised motorway, 881, with vehicles whooshing past one another day and night, while those who reside beneath the motorway attempt to carry on with their lives in the snow and the slush. And south of the 881 is the Pox. Was once a park, a place for reflection and recuperation for the patients of the old military hospital. In the 20s, it was used as a quarantine center during a measles outbreak that killed many children. Most everyone has avoided the hospital and surrounding park ever since. Martinez goes about its daily routine as you soar through the air. The loud voices of protesters mix with the engine sounds from the traffic jam. Waves crash against the pier, and dense, salty sea air fills your lungs. The corpse is dominating the yard, and the stench is nauseating. Even so far from the epicenter, it brings tears to your eyes. The little backyard, kingdom of Kuno, looks almost idyllic when it's not dominated by a decomposing human being. And its de facto ruler, Kuno the Gremlin King, is pointing at you, talking to his friend. What is he saying? Water drips from the eaves. A woman looks at her freshly tarred skiff. There's a pair of cavalry boots under the fish in the box, and the wind howls like a vicious spirit. A gust of cold air sweeps through the chimney. The stones and minerals on the shelves rattle as though agitated. For a moment, it almost feels as though you're outside the building, exposed to the atmosphere. You feel nothing. If anything, it's uncomfortably warm in here. Now you feel something, the cold damp of shame washing over you. Rats scuttle in the dark rooms under the abandoned blow dryers and dusty mannequins. Cobwebs cover rotors and radio computers alike. So much failure. The temperature has dropped in the cover of the night. You see frost on the windows. Outside it's light. Light scatters from the low-hanging cloud cover. There's always the threat of snow. Aside from getting naked, you're not sure what else to do. The building holds no more answers for you. No, the old coal plant that used to be here was subsumed into the new venture. Its ruins swallowed up. Yet it has a different address in the heart of the city. They have failed. Sounds like a ghost. Wind blows through your clothes and you feel detached from your surroundings. Inside the building, a cold memory hangs. The cold is deep under your skin, as if you were talking to someone who's 100 years away. Somewhere inside the building, water is flooding the cellar floor. Her words are too cold to comprehend. She smells of sodium lights and rain streaks on car windows. Eyes like pilot lights watch your shape in dark hallways. Guttering, somewhere in the past, it's summer. 5-year-old Fifette lets go of her mother's hand, change jingling in her pockets as she hops towards the ice cream stand right across the plaza. As she makes her way to the market stall, the girl starts crying. A ferocious ice bear is guarding the fridge, its paws raised to ward off any potential customers. Her mother rushes to soothe her, but Fifette doesn't want ice cream anymore. She just wants to go home. The ice bear stares at them as they leave the plaza. A gust of wind flies one of the wrappers right past the sobbing girl. Outside, a cold wind wraps the building in its bosom. Snowflakes in the wind. An old woman passes what the locals call the doomed commercial area. She tries hard not to look at the bookstore windows. It's unwise. On an island on the river Esperance, a small woman, all skin and bones, sits in a room filled with audio equipment. Thousands of tiny lights are reflected back from her prescription lenses, like stars in the dark. It opens up in front of you, with cracked asphalt and maple leaves brushing your feet. Halos of street lights hang above you. Hunched shadows carry grocery bags home. The lights are on in the little matchbox on the corner. Black-eyed dogs wander the alleys. Apple trees hang their bony limbs low over the patchwork of roofs. Red and black. Revachol West, the evening sun. She's left and bloomed, far away from us. Our vast soul, all the roads, will miss her footsteps when she's gone from here. As you hold the open door, you can feel the air moving. A little draft, a whistle. Life in the domain is even worse off than in Martinez. The cold air is stiff from the fumes of the motor carriages and lorries roaring overhead. A monstrous shadow high above the fire traps of the domain. The 881 motorway running over this district of Jamrock. Concrete pillars rise up from the midst of the dilapidated wooden houses. On the horizon, barely visible, the hazy machinery of the harbour. Below, broken down, battered people mill on the dusty streets with no purpose. Yet amongst them, there is no sight of this man. Nowhere. The wind gets stronger the higher you go. On a good day, you could see all the way to La Delta when you reach the top, and the masts and sails of dozens of pleasure crafts. Rain, sleet, and bouts of sun had marked his body when you found him, ready to break him down, like they broke down the little of what remained of the wheel after the landing. Waves crash onto the beach, drowning the reeds. Far to the south, a congregation gathers to a soup kitchen in a shelter for the homeless. An old woman gives out knitted scarves for free. Westward, across the canal, towers the whirling in rags. Door number 1 on the second floor is locked. Behind it lies a trashed room. 1 floor below, behind a counter, stands an irritable man. Overhead, you hear the forlorn shriek of seagulls. Far below the birds, a wooden boardwalk filled with abandoned stands, tables and benches, echoes from a long-lost time. You already were a part of their crew once. You can get drunk with them again. You're probably going to hang out there a lot, behind that cinder block house. It's where you belong. There is no going back. Outside, the howl of the wind has picked up. The waves crash against the stilts again. It's as if you think the thought, but in someone else's voice. The room feels muffled, like you pulled your hat over your ears. Outside, it is cold and windy, but you're inside, and it feels safe and warm. This could have been you. This could still be you. A down-on-his-luck nobody, trying to survive. Far away, on the corner of Petition and Main, a nondescript building, obscured in a haze. It's vacant and lost, just like its tenant. A middle-aged man stands in a rundown shack on the edge of a fishing village, listening to the heater hum on the wall. In a small shack in the fishing village, a baroque heater hums quietly, emanating a sense of comforting warmth. A wash basin lies on the table, the water inside reflecting the somber face of the world. Waves crash onto the beach, drowning the reeds. Far to the south, a congregation gathers to a soup kitchen in a shelter for the homeless. An old woman gives out knitted scarves for free. A middle-aged man stands in a rundown shack on the edge of a fishing village. Nothing nods. No one salutes him. No sight of the fugitive. A brisk coastal wind still howls against the window of the shack. Occasionally, the waves crawl in under the foundation, producing a low hum. Far to the southeast, 2 men and a woman dress themselves in ceramic armor. A shortwave radio hisses on the windowsill. One makes a salute. The other downs a drink. Weapons under the bed. Who are you talking to? There is no one here, not even cold. Behind the half-built cinder block house at the other end of the village, there are 3 people drinking. Your new crew. You don't need the old crew. Oh no, you have a new crew to get drunk with. The floorboards are twisting, and the shooting beams are slowly cracking like bones. Far east of the Golden Delta, beyond the industrial port, there is a black patch of unlit coast with the smallest creatures on the ice. There will never be a club for anodic music here, not in a million years. High above and to the east, the cold winds blow over the feathers of an early songbird. She lands on the stone ledge of a tall building, her beak a silvery grey. Long shadows, short shadows, quiet shadows of local children, loud shadows drunks, and also a shadow made of sticks. You breathe on your hands for warmth. This will be nothing. You can hear the ice cracking underneath you. Outside, the last century waterside development is crumbling in the wind. A grape-shot row of fallen houses on the pier, and so is Rue de Saint-Jérôme and Main Street. The old cinema is sinking underneath Villa La Bosse. This will be nothing. You can hear the ice cracking underneath you. Outside on the pier, the last century development crumbles in the wind. A grape-shot row of fallen houses, and so does Rue de Saint-Jérôme and Main Street. The old cinema is sinking underneath Villa La Bosse. On the coast of the Martinez Inlet, in a small weather-beaten stave church built 380 years ago by settlers from the Occident, most likely to guard against an anomaly at its center, an officer of the RCM is contorting his body into idiotically rigid shapes as he invents the future of dance music. It's the hardest anyone has ever danced. Music pounds through the hall of an old stave church on the coast of Martinez. Several figures are lost in the beats. Their bodies pull this way and that by sound. One of them, an officer of the RCM, suddenly stops. He appears disoriented, then starts shaking violently, no longer in rhythm with the music. This will be nothing. You can hear the ice cracking underneath you. Outside on the pier, the last century development crumbles in the wind. A grape-shot row of fallen houses, and so does Rue de Saint-Jérôme and Main Street. The old cinema is sinking underneath Villa La Bosse. This will be nothing. You can hear the ice crack underneath you. Outside, the last century waterfront development is crumbling in the wind. A grape-shot row of falling houses, and so is Rue de Saint-Jérôme and all the houses on Main Row. The old cinema is sinking underneath Villa La Bosse. An officer of the RCM is lying on the floor of a small church with his eyes rolled back and his tongue lolling out. Several others are standing around him. He slowly comes to. The wind brings some snow in from the broken gallery. It wraps you in its embrace, cold and luminous. You should return to the mural soon, to the one that said, "Tomorrow is just a whisper away." Feels like electricity and a very small piece of nothingness. High above, the wind wraps the church in its rush, cold and wet from the ocean bay. It parts around the massive keel-shaped roof, like a test tunnel washing both sides, the way it has done for 340 years. The wind keeps its distance. So should you. The skin on your back is crawling. For a second, you can't even hear the music anymore. There is a hawthorn tree on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, right next to the canal. A reel of magnetic tape is caught in its branches, like bronze ribbons blowing in the wind. There is a hawthorn tree on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, right next to the canal. A hawthorn tree on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, tangled in its branches, something bronze flutters in the wind. The dark shadow of the church is drawn out on the sand. Two men stand there, silent. Their talk is over. The dark shadow of the church is drawn out on the sand. Two men part there, in silence. The dark shadow of the church is drawn out on the sand. Two men stand there, in silence. The dark shadow of the church is drawn out on the sand. Two men stand there, silent. Their talk is over. Slowly, peeled by the wind. Your skin crawls from the sensation as you look around. The wood creaks as a gale blows by. Outside, dust particles fall through the darkness, settling down on the age-bleached floorboards. The structure does not feel particularly durable. The wind pushes a piece of tear across the cracked tiles. From the north comes the malicious laughter of two children. The voice again, more urgent now. Nay, from behind you, a low, spectral voice whispers, nay. Water flows under the channel bridge, dark water. You rub your sides for warmth, but there is none. The wrinkled fingers of an old man crush flower petals, then sprinkle them in the stream like white salt. Inland, above the Martinez distributary, the channel that brought wastewater from the silk mills of Jamrock, and then dead bodies during the war. The feeling recedes. They are like the bombardiers of the aerostatic brigades, gliding above a target-rich environment. Somewhere, high above the city, a pair of seagulls trace loops through the air. All of a sudden, the Bombay doors open, and their white glittering payload rushes to the ground. Splat! An explosion of white on a man's shoe. A curse goes up, but the birds do not hear. The winds are silent. The streets are empty of her. She is no longer in the city of Revachol. Frisson covers your entire body, a feeling of cold, a persistent chill. A small piece of paper dances above Martinez, above slow waves crashing the shore, and the war-torn houses, and the new bâtiments nouveaux alike. Above you, looking up to the grey sky, with your hair greasy and wet. Far away and outside, the reeds hiss with desperation. Step out, and above the distant street and the 881, even above the old fish market and the church, its material existence is lost. This great city will pocket it for you. For your own sake, forget about it. The cool damp of the city has penetrated to your very marrow. Summer is a long way away. Practical, and yet it may deaden your senses to the world around you. Possibly because of the awful typeface. You are the doom speaker. It is your lot to ply these somnolent roads, declaring your lonely truth. Air moving through what was once a row of apartments protected by walls and a roof. It sighs through the remains of bedrooms and parlors. This is your city. Defend it at all costs. Don't forsake me, officer. I am your responsibility, just as you are mine. A soft rustling. The snow seems to have gotten between your ears somehow. A soft rustling between your ears, a winterscape with fast-falling snow. Every light switch, every motor carriage, every doorbell, tea kettle, and radio in Martinez, all mingled with electrical interference caused by scattered thunderstorms over Ozone, Le Jardin, Stella Marie, Saint-Baptiste. She's looking down on the suburbs of Revachol East, the old and irregular streets, like a grid drawn by a palsied hand. The open fires burning in oil drums, visible through blasted roofs. You cannot leave. So much hangs in the balance. There is something, a whisper, circulating among the city's footnoted alleyways and along its electrical wires. But what it's saying, you can't tell. It seems to be a message meant for someone else. A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine. Something about the lieutenant's words directed at you, but not you. A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine. You can feel the lieutenant's presence, even though he's nowhere to be found. A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine. Something about the lieutenant's words directed at you, but not you. A slight frisson at the point where your neck meets your spine. You can feel the lieutenant's presence, even though he's nowhere to be found. A soft rustling The snow seems to have gotten between your ears somehow. A soft rustling between your ears, a winterscape with fast falling snow. Every light switch, every motor carriage, every doorbell, tea kettle, and radio in Martinez, all mingled with electrical interference caused by scattered thunderstorms over Ozone. A group of marble pleurants still surround the king's vandalized tomb. A deathly cold wind sweeps up candy wrappers and old newspapers. To the west, dark brown ribbons of tape hang from the tree, flowing in the wind. From out on the bay, a cool wind gathers. It sweeps into the city, tugging at the textiles hanging around the stand. Some distance away, the sound of a tin can clattering across the street can be heard. There, hundreds of thousands of motor carriages roar on the 881, high above the mass of brown and red roofs that is Jamrock. The commuters don't even look down. The world ceases to exist outside the windshield. To Kuron, through the middle-income neighborhoods there, by the river, and then to Stella Maris and La Delta for work, while the men and women of Jamrock scuttle to their fates below the road. Wind rips through the empty hallways of the once great military hospital, now just a ruin under an overgrown park. Beneath the hospital, great sewer tunnels hum and vibrate with life of their own. The rattle of motor carriages and lorries driving through long-forgotten tunnels, lit by gaslights. Despite the cold, figures move about cloaked in shadow, their breath escaping in white clouds that fade into the darkness. Wherever you look, the night gives cover to her messengers. They travel from eminent domain to perdition and onto the main, over the River Esperance, on Route 881 to the Old South. The exit ramp is supposed to be shut down, but there's much activity. The road spreads like the tentacles of a great octopus. A figure in a day dress, cuddled up in an armchair. She looks up and smiles at you across the living room. A terrible cold comes over her, rattling her teeth as she stares inward. You feel very cold suddenly, as if standing face to face with a terrifying adversary. Then the feeling dissipates and all you see is an aging woman. The wind howls over the bay of Revachol, a cascade of cold air flowing through the city streets. Those same streets have left their share of scuff marks on the underside of your green snakeskin shoes. The wind howls over the bay of Revachol, a cascade of cold air flowing through the tangled city streets. The road continues for miles, flowing together with other roads, turning into causeways or bridges, ending suddenly in dead ends, or ramping up or down highways. It forms a crisscross pattern across the land. You may ignore the labyrinthine pathways, but you will never be freed from them. They are carved into your soul. Above the Jamrock Quarter, in the form of a raised motorway, and then the never-ending sprawl of Forburg, high above buildings, new and old, the air filled with the rumble of motor engines. You cannot see. It's out of the city. Up ahead, the mist blocks all sight. A gale blows across your cheeks. It is cold. Before you stands a tall lorry driver with sad eyes. To the old south, to the farthest outskirts of Revachol, through the checkered fields of farmland, upstream to the River Esperance, past Montmartin. The border approaches. The road disappears. It is but a mirage. Before you stands a tall lorry driver with sad eyes. Could be. They certainly want to stir the pot, remake reality in some new image. Irony. They're yuppies masquerading as Mazovians. Or was it Mazovians masquerading as yuppies? Even they get confused sometimes. Out here in poverty-stricken Martinez. Yes, and it's rather ironic, because they believe themselves to be Mazovians, deep down. Could be. Not sure they remember what they're working for anymore, themselves. Yes, They are highly motivated by irony, being yuppies masquerading as Mazovians. Or was it Mazovians masquerading as yuppies? Even they get confused sometimes. Here, in poverty-stricken Martinez, the Delta Logistics Company truck stands here waiting, reflecting white light from the courtyard behind it. Not yet. You knew it would be here, blocking the gate, because this is a place of mystery. Yes, people hard at work at their desks. They can barely tell if it's day or night anymore, because the lights in the building are so uniform and bright. Who knows when they'll come out? A cold creeps up your spine, reaching its tendrils up your neck, toward the back of your head. The wind stops. There is silence on the dark water of the Martinez Inlet. The cold runs down your spine as you say the words, like a small electric charge that seeks grounding. The wind stops, and for a moment, there's silence. The charge dissipates into the dark water. All is quiet on the Martinez Inlet. The wind stops, and for a moment, there's silence. The cold dissipates into your parietal lobe like a dissolved bullet. All is quiet on the Martinez Inlet. You look south over the crumbling balustrade. There, 1.2 kilometers away, a piece of broken stone cuts into the sky. A tomb. On it, a mural that used to say, "Tomorrow is just a whisper away." You cannot really see the felled building from here, but somehow you feel like you should return to it. Below, the city trembles with its remaining lights. People are rushing home, running away from home, smoking, sleeping, singing in the shower. Edges of dining tables, hands, aprons flicker through windows before the lights go out. The lights of the orphan district are reflected in his glasses, the red and golden orbs of the motorway sliding like pearls on a string from east to west as Revachol commutes back to the suburbs. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Monday is over. On Moreau Drive in central Jamrock, in a darkened hall lit by orange desk lamps far away from the noise outside, a middle-aged man taps commands into an old radio computer. A printout falls on the desk. Behind him, a lonely reader scours some dusty bookshelves, looking for a paperback. In the middle of a broken plaza, in a cone of light, barely visible in the daytime, two men, one slim, the other sturdy. They are on the city stage, but only one of them knows his lines. All of them worse than here. In the middle of a broken plaza, illuminated in a cone of light, two men, one slim, the other sturdy. They are on the city stage, but only one of them knows his lines. Somewhere on the outskirts of Forburg, a scrawny teenage girl stands by the side of the road, greeting passing vehicles with a calloused thumb turned upward. She's tired. She wants to leave, but she knows she will come back. A man in a white suit walks through a garden coaxed from soil that had once been covered in asphalt. A city block closed off from the rest of the city by dark buildings. Rows and rows of poppies, most of which have lost their pink bloom, flank his steps. The man looks around, then up at the sky, sighs. Taking out a knife, he crouches at the end of one flower bed. He scores a seapod, very gently. Milky sap begins to ooze out. The pain comes over you again. Someone crouches, heels digging into wet sand. Hands sweep across the sand, grains sticking to the frayed skin of the fingertips. An old man sits on a slab of concrete and taps his fingers against the glass of a scope. You shudder, howling somewhere, lashing the boardwalk with brine and rain. An ancient warmth crawls under your skin, howling somewhere, lashing the boardwalk with brine and rain. An ancient warmth crawls under your skin. Out on the terrace of La Fru de Fond, a hip business lunch spot in downtown La Delta, glasses clink over a spread of oysters. Someone can't decide what to eat. Someone recommends a ceviche. Someone shields her eyes, trying to see across the bay. As she walks off, the wind picks up. and the light from the sun seems to fade. The crumbling silhouette of failed electrical R&D towers in the distance, beckoning. As she walks off, the wind picks up, and the light from the sun seems to fade. The crumbling silhouette of failed electrical R&D towers in the distance, beckoning. The hair on your arm stands up as you hear the wind howl behind the window. An outline of a small bathroom appears in your mind's eye. Above the sink, in a tumbler, is a pair of labeled toothbrushes. An imposing figure, with almost mythical proportions, fills the entire room. He's hunched over the sink, and muscles like waves on the ocean roll under his skin, with even the smallest of movements, shaving or about to chop firewood because, oh, he is shaving, sliding an enormous axe blade down his bristly chin. With grunts accompanying the process, steam is emanating from his naked body. The image blurs. One of them is labeled Martha, and the other one, which appears to be a chewing bone, has Yazinio carved into it. A shadow falls over the ceramic tumbler. Something moves in the depths of your mind, sending shocks of cold through the connective tissue. You're sitting on a kicksled, whizzing through the snow. A warm, kind presence is guiding the sled behind you, her mittened hand resting on your back. You feel very, very loved, and very, very safe. There should be something here, a memory, a feeling, even if it's just a glimpse. But the depths of your psyche remain silent. You don't have a single memory of your mother. A chill races down your spine. On the corner of Voyager and Main, a large neon sign hangs on the side of a building. Video Revachol, 24 hours. It's raining and there is almost no traffic on the street. A woman's footprints in the mud lead away from the front door. Tiny heels tiptoeing down the road. Beautiful steps, light-footed with a lifetime ahead of them. You look up and the air seems to grow darker. Nearby, a hoarse bark barrels through an alleyway that sits between two monstrous squats. No one walks down there anymore, but the nostrils of those who pass by in wet weather still detect the sickly scent of gasoil and burnt hair. All around you, rain keeps falling down, on the wooden boards she's standing on, and on the water around you. A breeze ripples through the sails and tugs at your hair. Below, the sleek, fish-like shape of the hull parts the water. Beneath that, a resounding darkness. You're reminded of something, or someone. A cold breath rushes in from the bay, making its way down the alleyways and potholed streets. From Martinez to Jamrock, in the traffic you hear the clinking of glass vials, concealed beneath tarpaulin. Or is it just your teeth chattering in the cold? Houses drenched in red, blood gushing down Rue de Saint-Cispar. The whole place mopped with a giant red rag. Fresh bullet holes for all the old buildings. The humidity crawls under your skin. Your eyes track her gaze, past the net picker, toward the concrete square of the nameless village off the coast of Martinez. The concrete plates cross to meet in an abstract shape. In them, small footprints, impressions left by rubber boots. Small rubber boots. There are rain circles on water all around. Humidity crawls up your back like a piano trill. The droplets feel warm, like spring rain. Your skin crawls, while a gentle wind sweeps the streets in the rebuilt east. Light drizzle washing it clean. Lights go up and motor carriages circulate the tracks. A frisson lifts the hair on the back of your arm. Wind sweeps the surface of the bay. The cold seeps into you. The air is heavy with 80% humidity. There is no recognition, only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it. The chill is bracing. The salt hangs in the air. The wind from the ocean pushes at you, smoothing your moustache. Underwater, iron helmets have sunk deep into the sand and the mud. Helmets of soldiers, and their finger bones too, and clavicles, littering the ocean floor. The gale wind blows in from the coast, a wind of needles. It wraps itself around a building of brick and mortar. Somewhere, a clamor rings through the honeycomb of classrooms. Remorse, the parquet of assembly halls. The rows of stall bars are growing cold. The corridors stand empty. A girl's voice somehow finds its way through this strange feeling. You haven't heard a word of what she's been saying these past few moments. You only hear that sound. You feel the wind in your hair as if you're already driving. But where? Down a narrow street lined with shabby wooden houses, the 881 motor tract coiling like a serpent high above. Children play under the viaduct, eyes turn to watch you as you pass. The valley of dogs, and before it, a familiar dome, like a ladybug without the colors. The building has a designated parking place for your carriage. And then suddenly, you see it. Over all the other graffitos, someone has, using the tip of a very sharp knife, cut the words, Revachol forever. A young woman kneels on wooden planks, still looking for something lost ages ago. She's nodding her head along to the signal coming in through her headphones. A young woman kneels on a sheet of ice, as if looking for something lost ages ago. She bends until her right ear touches the frozen water. She listens to it crack. Slowly, west, in the Grand Couronne area, a sharp overhand left from Arsène-Luc Edelbrock sends the Samarin heavyweight champion, Kostya Miasnok Kostanica, flying to the mat. The crowd goes wild. Revachol loves her heroes. Rows of stalls under a broad roof, where silvery fish were heaped on newspapers. Water, water everywhere, pouring from the heavens in the shadow of the old church. Your shirt sticks to your chest. The shoulders of your disco blazer grow heavy. The cold finds its way in under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you. Standing in the rain, looking north, where Jamrock Rock City stretches inland. In the rain-swept distance, above the rooftops of Jamrock, a repurposed silk mill stands perched above the motorway exit. Precinct 41 hunches in the rain. Your vision blurs. You wipe your face with your hand. The rain stings your eyes, making you look up and blink. Coalition aerostatics hang like apparitions under the cloud cover. Way up there, where rain forms, rotors flutter silently. Your sight clears. The ruins of a half-sunken sea fort crumble on an inlet beyond the Bay of Revachol. Ghosts rise into the sky. Hallways collapse from the mortar hits of a war that was lost long ago. Clotheslines go to waste in the rain. Radios play. Your shirt sticks to your chest. The shoulders of your jacket grow heavy. The cold finds its way under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you. Your shirt sticks to your chest. The cold finds its way under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you. The shoulders of your jacket grow heavy. The cold finds its way under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you. Water runs down your bare chest. The cold finds its way under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you. Humid, your coat shields you from the rain while the city shivers around you. Winter's grip on the city is loosening. The spring thaw is here. A yard. Rain falls onto the roof of a woodshed. Filthy water pools around a body. Droplets of rain slip from the dead man's cold cheeks. A yard. Rain falls onto the roof of a woodshed. The lingering odor of decomposition mixes with that of damp soil. More coalition aerostatics. Way up there, where rain forms, rotors flutter silently. Your sight clears. All around you, rain falls on the great city of Revachol. Rain drips from the eaves and floods the gutters, washing the filth away. The great gates of the industrial harbour are locked. A chill runs down your back. You shudder like an animal trying to shake water from its hide. You shudder, looking down at your feet. Dirty rainwater runs veins into the plaza's snow. Behind the gates, heaps of supply crates, red and blue metal shipping containers, slick with rain. The Greater Revachol Industrial Harbour is an artificial mountain range. Immense wealth resides within, and immeasurable poverty in its shadow. You, on the Martinez Plaza, a small dot looking up at the sky. Droplets form on your eyelashes. La Drusienne, King Dries passenger harbour. Cruise ships flanked by dock arms. Cranes watching over the mouth of the river distributary. Couronne, the lower middle class. Distributary after distributary cuts the city blocks in half. 7-story buildings trail off into the rain. A silvery curtain of rain over the houses. The class divide. Sheets of rain over the water. A flight of stairs leading into the ocean. Wave after wave washing the coast of Martinez, with its motorboats and gently swaying reeds. Capeside apartments. Tower blocks crowd one another. 4.46mm bullets still lodged in their war-torn stone walls. A traffic jam. Rain thrumming on the roofs of motor vehicles. Inside, drivers watch water streaming down their windshields. The statue of a king shudders. He too is cold. The canal bridge has been raised. The road ascends. A raised motorway loops above the ghetto. Beneath its concrete columns, a sea of rooftops, woodwork, and tar stretches northward. 4-story buildings as far as the rain can fall. The snows melt in Jamrock. These spring thaw will not last. The winter will return to Revachol. Collapsed storm drains, old sewage systems flooded with rainwater. Hidden weapon caches from the revolution. Doors leading down to Le Royaume. The catacombs to which, for 3 centuries, they delivered the blue-blooded dead. The skyscrapers of La Delta, the financial district. Faint golden light seeps from the office windows. The spring thaw must be here. The snow is melting. Coal City, end of all lines. Urban coastline, rain dripping off Eternite-covered roofs. Cinder blocks left over from half-finished construction. A defunct research and development building, once seized by revolutionaries. An old wooden church stands on stilts above the water. Your hair is an oily mess flecked with ash from neighboring coal plants. Smokestacks rise somewhere in the distance, looking up at the sky. Cold water dripping from your hair. No, you are just one of the hundreds of thousands who watch them rise across the bay from Martinez every day. Your hair sticks to your forehead, cold and wet. Revachol is the capital of the world. Jamrock is the capital of Revachol. Droplets form on your eyelashes. A yard. Rain falls onto the roof of a woodshed. Coal leaks into a puddle beneath a dead man's feet. He swings from a tree, bloated. Droplets of rain slip from his cold cheeks. You realize you still have only one shoe, nearby on the balcony of the Whirling in Rags hostel cafeteria. A single crocodile skin shoe now fills with rainwater. 2 green snakeskin shoes stand at attention on the mosaic paving of the plaza. You realize you have no shoes on. Your feet are red with cold. Grey sky like great battleships, clouds colliding with one another. Rain falls down on the world. The rain falls. To be in Martinez, where no one goes, at the runoff point of a long-forgotten canal, in the whitest part of town, in the shadow of the day the revolution failed. On a street there that flows like a muddy river in the snow, with fire traps rising on either side. A film rental opens its doors to the rain. An armored motor carriage rushes past the corner, where you used to walk together. Suddenly, the hair on your back rises. The wind picks up. The silence on the water is broken. Little shivers of waves appear. Your skin crawls. The wind picks up. The silence on the water is broken all around you. Little shivers of waves appear. The lieutenant continues, like an incantation. Your skin is crawling suddenly. The feeling dissipates. The silence remains. South, the Bay of Martinez is dotted with little freckles of islets, turning green, with white flowers in white snow, and in them a chill like electricity running up your spine, crawling into your skull. Inside, in a cell, a young woman is withdrawing from amphetamines, barbiturates, and alcohol. Shivering, she fades from your mind's eye. Across the harbor, on the south bank of the River Esperance, white snow falls on a 2-story box of duraluminum, Precinct 57, near the gates to Terminal H. Inside a cell, a young woman is withdrawing from amphetamines, barbiturates, and alcohol, all at once, while 2 men in brown suits wave ICP badges at a young policeman. She hears the door open and knows it's over. They've come for her. Outside, it's springtime. The river flows blue and green into the Bay of Martinez. Smaller, distant, hidden. Not like the great chandeliers she sees sparkle in the dusk below her. Streets, towers, tenements and cold water. Across the water, a dark strip of ruins, barely visible, if she didn't squint her eyes. On the platform, a young woman is withdrawing from amphetamines, barbiturates, and alcohol. Yet still, she smiles among the crowd, fading from your mind's eye. On the platform, a young woman is withdrawing from amphetamines, barbiturates, and alcohol. Yet still, she smiles among the crowd, among the great ghosts of the city she's leaving, for another, far south, midtown, across the Bay of Revachol. Cold rain falls on 40-story towers. Above them, Lausanne Central Aerodrome, a cocoon suspended in the grey sky by a web of suspension wiring encircled by hybrid aircraft. Goodbye, Martinez. The sweat on your arms feels cold as ice, as if you're frozen as well, in the shadow of this great statue of chitinous marble. In the north, something moves, leaving circles on the water, long stalks in the shallows. All around you, the air slowly circulates the islet, carrying little swallows and black-beaked seagulls in its slow drift. They all, every one of them, every bird, mammal, and crustacean, keep their distance. The cold dissipates. The old man watches you carefully. Where night falls, hydrogen street lamps burn on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, golden light cast in black shadows. Further inland, in Jamrock, the street grid appears black, unlit avenue after unlit avenue. Alto cumulus clouds form above Precinct 41. Where it's morning, on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, people are walking. The gas street lights have already been switched off. Further inland, in Jamrock, the streets come alive with workers. Men, women, children rushing. Muddy avenue after muddy avenue. The temperature is rising. Alto cumulus clouds form above Precinct 41. Where the afternoon grows late, on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, people walk home. Street lights will soon be lit. Further inland, the streets are alive with workers, men, women, children, street hawks and migrant laborers. The temperature is steady. Alto cumulus clouds form above Precinct 41. Where evening comes, on Rue de Saint-Ghislain, hydrogen streetlights switch on, casting black shadows. Further inland, the street grid appears dark. Unlit avenue after unlit avenue. The temperature is dropping. Alto cumulus clouds form above Precinct 41. No, it's more than that. There's something there, waiting. A thin wisp of smoke rises from a charred black fire pit. The wind picks up, then dies down again. The great ghost of the air is holding its breath, of great importance to the few who attend. In front of the video rental, on the corner, at the crossing, The wind blows. In the distance, behind the church, some vagrants are having an argument over a bag of tear they found in the reeds. Further away, a flock of seagulls lands in a little alley next to Boogie Street. A man in stained overalls steps out of a workshop for a cigarette. His hands are bruised and soaked with motor oil and dirt. He breathes smoke out of his nostrils and closes his eyes. The next 5 minutes are his, and his alone. There is very little wind here today. The ghost is standing still. You look at your arms, then the cliffs above you. A shovel hits the sand somewhere behind the reeds, near an abandoned construction yard. The young men look over their shoulders suspiciously. The sound of their digging seems loud in the sudden silence. A woman is sitting by the kitchen table, eating buttered toast and drinking herbal tea. She opens the South Neighbour Report, a quarterly business magazine. There, in shiny tricolor print, him, triumphant and victorious, like an apparition from the past. Plastic bags heavy with tins and deformed vegetables swing from the fists of a young mother crossing a roundabout. Her mouth falls open as she looks up at the central structure. "Come here, Luke. Over here now, please," she says to her curious toddler. The bags beat steady bruises into the mother's calves as she hurries him away. The wooden clack of a bilboquet comes to a halt before the central structure of a roundabout. Awe whistles through the air as the onlooker takes in every angle. Eager eyes fill nearby windows, brought to the glass by the sound of the toy, but now also taking in the sight of the striking new installation. 3 men are standing on a wooden platform extending out from the shore of a dilapidated fishing village, their cheeks red, spirits high, beers in hand, eyes glazed over. The streets are warmed by a southerly breeze. The lights of a passing motor carriage bloom and fade in the distance. 2 women stand on a small outcropping of rocks. One of them is wearing a purple raincoat. Thin lines reach out from the rods into the sea. Small droplets start appearing on the surface with increasing frequency. In the harbor's dark, her cigarette is a beacon, dancing alone. The image comes to you effortlessly, as though you'd walked the same streets yourself 1,000 times. Their cloud shadows slide over the ruins of Revachol West. Wherever they pass, the temperature drops slightly, but perceptibly. Above you, there forms a quilt of alto-cumulus clouds, twisting into each other. The wind tugs and stretches them over the bay. A sudden gust of cold air blows in from the sea. The waves flow and ebb. Around you, the fishing village takes its slow and steady breaths. Its many wooden structures, worn by bitter years of salt and storm. Its home, even at the worst of times. Revachol cares for its inhabitants. Waves wash the sand. A skiff moves across the mirror-smooth sea, far away from here. A lone passenger, a fast sloop in the distance. White sails. The harbor seawall endures the wash of the freezing waves. Many things wash up against it and onto the beaches of Revachol. Some inanimate, some just no longer alive. You shudder. In the mist-colored distance over the water, nothing moves, not a trace of it. Stop and you can go to the burnt-out quarter and meet me there, wafting above the burnt ruins, like the smell of caramel. Le Retour is waiting. Distant traffic. A scrap of newspaper drifts by, carried by the wind. You close your eyes and hear the dogs bark. A lone woman sits by a factory window, dreaming of meteorite strikes. On Rue de Saint-Jérôme, a square bullet slides into a square-shaped chamber. In Old South, a man without eyelids smiles. Spring has come. It's time. Under the night sky, the great district sleeps, a chessboard of old wooden houses in the snow. 80,000 living souls inside. Fire traps as far as the eye can see From Main Street to Precinct 41 atop the motorway, to Boogie Street glowing on the horizon. Under the evening sky, the great district turns on its lights. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls inside. Fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Precinct 41 atop the motorway, to Boogie Street forking into the snow-swept horizon. Under the afternoon sky, the great district hums. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, and chimney stacks. Fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Precinct 41, to Boogie Street forking into the snow-swept horizon. Under the noonday sky, the great district hums. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, and chimney stacks. Fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Precinct 41, to Boogie Street forking into the snow-swept horizon. The great district hums in the slowly falling snow. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, and chimney stacks. Fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Precinct 41, to Boogie Street forking into the white horizon. The great district hums in the falling rain. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Grand Couronne, from Precinct 41 to Boogie Street, forking into the rain-swept horizon. Under the violet morning sky, the great district wakes. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls and chimney stacks. Fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Precinct 41, to Boogie Street forking into the glowing horizon. The great district hums with the noise of human habitation. A chessboard of wooden houses, 80,000 living souls, fire traps as far as the eye can see. From Main Street to Grand Couronne, from Precinct 41 to Boogie Street, forking into the distant horizon. Between here and Jamrock, a dusty sea of old trees, all covered in industrial soot. Small houses under them, an overgrown park. Behind this building, the other one, once filled with engineers and designers of Feld Electric, now collapsed and dead, but for some rats. You feel drawn, for some reason, to the faded mural again. This event will be beyond all scales. Every day, the wind shifts the reeds and whatever was left in them. Tambourines and condom wrappers, plastic and glass bottles. The smell of decay. This is the smell of dying reeds, of longing crumbling into the water. The hair on your arms stand up. Electricity. Sounds like reeds hissing. In a rundown shack on the far coast, a middle-aged man pounds his fists and looses an animal cry as he stares into a sliver of clouded glass. A cold damp seeps in through the gaps between the wall planks. There is no one to bear witness to your vow. From above the bay of Revachol, a cold wind gathers in response. The people of the fishing village pull their coats and blankets tight about themselves. An almost unbearable tension fills the room. The hairs on your back stand up. A tremble comes over you. Another after effect of ethanol poisoning, perhaps, feels like leaves do when they rustle in the breeze, somewhere far away, below the turbine. The 41st and the 57th. The lieutenant was right. It's not about who gets what's north. It's about who doesn't. Heavy drops of rain fall on the colliding eyebrows and run down the worn faces. The world outside this standoff almost doesn't exist. Snowflakes fall and immediately melt in the heat of the colliding eyebrows. Nothing exists outside this moment. It's as if the entire world is frozen solid in awe of this great clash of brows. Nothing exists outside this moment. Outside, the melting snow seeps into the cracks in the walls and the cobblestone streets, all the way down into the sewers. Above ground, the first May bells blossom. You can feel it. a great cold. Then the shiver passes. Outside, spring rain seeps into the cracks in the walls and the cobblestone streets and into grated storm drains, all the way down into the sewers. Above ground, the first maybells blossom. Somewhere out there, a kilometre to the southeast, a gust of wind shakes the felled building, rattling dusty windows, beckoning with strange coldness. To ask the wind once more. A cold breeze hisses through dense thickets of reeds. Something sweet in it, somnolent. A damp chill goes down your spine. When you look around, you're still in the whirling in rags. On Clinton Street, near the Boogie Street Diamond, a small truck rattles down an alleyway. It stops by a rusted trash container. Two men, their faces rough and swollen, jump out. They look at the container, despondently. CSM is written on their backs. Outside, in the midday sun, ruins. The pavements are cracked and the benches peeling. Newspapers blow in the wind. Outside, in the night light, quiet, dressed in sodium lamps, torn and in tatters. Outside, under the rising sun, tattered and in ruins, the windows of the cafeteria aglow with her morning light. Outside, in the evening light, ruined and old, shadows lengthen on the pavement. A distant gunshot. Suddenly, the wind picks up outside. You hear it rattling the large windows in their frames. It carries newspapers, circles the whirling in rags in a warm column. A gust of wind blows in from the bay. The duraluminum box around you vibrates imperceptibly. A familiar cold, a red thread on the roof upstairs. Taut, plucked like a string by the gust. Do it for the wind. A gust of wind blows in from the bay. The duraluminum box around you vibrates imperceptibly. A familiar cold, a red thread on the roof upstairs. Taut, plucked like a string by the gust. And ever, out of the corner of your eye, you see the hair on the back of your hand standing on end. It feels as though low-grade lightning is coursing through you. You must be hypersensitive from the hangover. In the Jamrock Quarter, the Elysium for music, company and men, or the door to the river for death and synthetic opiates. Away in the east in Coron, in a starlit boîte de nuit like La Chiotte, far from here, and you, shivering dog. A chill runs down your spine when you hear the name of your light. Revachol. Somewhere in La Delta, numbers flip and whirl on the giant split flap boards of the stock exchange, marking gains the size of Kemi SR's entire economy. Radio computers hum below to the tune of gambling. Below, the hostel cafeteria creaks and groans under your added weight. A skeleton of composite support beams and cantilevers. A dull thump. Somewhere inside, a wind brace rattles from the imperceptible motion of the building. The sky is more black than grey. You hear the distant murmur of motor connections somewhere south of here. That is all. Continuously nothing. The sky slowly slides above you. The young woman exhales the scent of menthol tobacco. Sounds like a sigh. The sky is low and cold. You hear the distant murmur of motor connections somewhere south of here. That is all. From the vapor, a great cumulus is formed, a cloud castle 1,000 meters high. A flock of seagulls screams, hitchhiking on the thermal. They too are part of the procession, the honor watch, because it's warm, from the gathering spring, from the oceanic current flowing into the bay, the people on the streets, and the machines that hum in the harbor. Heavy fuel oils, too. Everyone is a guest on this Isola, a guest of the air and the water and the humidity between. You are as well, surely, as safe as you keep her. Her thought trails off. The wind picks up again. Above her, a great cumulus cloud rises, ready to fall down as precipitation. April will come, then May. A month, maybe two from now. You shudder. The feeling dissipates. The thought ends. For her, the guest, waiting for Gloria. Soon these clouds will all fall down as rain. Spring will come. 2 more months, maybe less. It's time. A warm column of air rises around you, encircling the building you stand on. You feel its twisting shape, bits of paper and birds on the thermal, along with several million liters of water, all rising up into the great Enceladinian sky. Nothing happens. There is a mass of droplets above the planetary body, colorless, merging into one another. Around her, a drop in the atmospheric pressure. Not long from now, it will get dark. The rain will come, and the air will start moving faster, circling the box she stands on, where the cold oceanic expanse lies, and behind it, another world. Around her, a drop in the atmospheric pressure. Not long from now, it will get dark, and the air will start moving faster, circling the box she stands on. The wind rises, so do the hairs on your back. Somewhere west, small bubbles rise from a plastic ball floating in the water. Rusty, the color of oversteeped tea. Long, spindly arms are spinning the boy around, turning it, inspecting it like a magic 8-ball, trying to find a way to snap it open. Long, spindly arms spin the boy. Oh, but it's all gone now. A free Revachol. There is a low, distant rumble on the motor tracks. A great machine shaking the pillars down south. Electricity runs up your spine. A squall of seagulls under the low-hanging sky. Distant machinery from the harbor. It's wide open and cold. The snow falls on her shoulders, then melts in her light blonde hair, cold and soft. The rain falls on her shoulders, tinting her blonde hair light brown. It smells of industrial pollution and brine. The wet wind, heavy with brine and industrial pollution from the stacks nearby, ruffles her hair. A column of air encircles her, brushing gently on the metallic silver fabric that covers her shoulders and her long, slender arms. The feeling dissipates. The cold passes. The woman's eyes follow yours to the piece of notebook paper. There is a sound, something in the reeds, when the wind combs through them, on the inlet, on the little islands there between castaway tires. It's moving. The motes under your eyelids stand still. Say something. But why? None of this belongs to anyone anymore. There are too many places to start, aren't there? Then do your job. But of what conflict or catastrophe? Signage is put up and taken down. Shop windows boarded up and reopened once more. What remains constant? Voyeurism, always unhelpful, and, at times, quite fully helpless. It doesn't even matter why it was put there in the first place. That's something it could have been used for. No, but how does it make you feel to dig through its trash? There's something cold in the air, like water lapping against cold stones, or dripping in a hallway nearby. 3 years ago, there were shoes in the corner. A chill comes over you, the wind from the boulevard south, lashing you for trying to separate them, for trying to take the street out of Kuno. A cold comes over you as you glance behind him at the crumbling colossus there, casting a shadow on you. 6 meters underground, below piping from before the war, the collapsed remains of the Martinez storm drain system. There are 2 stolen flashlights with piles of batteries next to them, beside 2 bedrolls, in the dark and opening into the lower tunnels. Windows are being opened. On Rue Saint-Cypar, people are turning their heads. An elderly woman puts down her grocery bags in front of the Frit store and listens. Somewhere behind her, the gates of the industrial harbor are raised. On the catwalk above the shipping containers, a broad-shouldered man jerks his head up. That Kuno? Cops getting killed out there. The tattooed mesk next to him smiles. That's Kuno, all right. The building is tall, 7 stories wind-wrapped in solitude. Most of the apartments are unoccupied. This was a suicide. The other, an accident. The small one. A column of cold air encircles you, rising slowly upward in the shape of a courtyard, bordered by cracked plaster, windows, seagulls perched on air conditioning units. A small green enclosure in the middle of a corral of tenements. Cape-side apartments, whirling in rags, and the fortress wall of Terminal B. Above it, a thin blanket of coastal stratus clouds. Higher yet, coalition airships guard over the 21 cordons of the zone of control. The air is crisscrossed with radio transmissions. The hair on your neck rises. Something is on its way. Something hidden. It's coming. A miracle from the northwest, and it's almost here. You can feel it in the air, on your hands, the cold spring air smoothing them over.
She's down there. There is nothing else. The mic is nothing, and this has nothing to do with the mic. A glimpse into the past. It happened once, long ago. For 300 years I have been here, volatile and luminous, made of sodium and rain. If you want me, you can find me on the beach, dans la dernière balle. Revachol forever. What is this place to you? Look under the floorboards. I am la Revacholière. I am the city. I am a fragment of the world spirit, the genius Loki of Revachol. My heart is the wind corridor. The bottom of my air is red. I have 100,000 luminous arms. Come morning, I carry industrial dust and let it settle on tree leaves. I shake the dust from those leaves and onto your coat. You are an officer of the citizens' militia, jaunt in rebut. When you wear your coat, you wear my soul. Death. It is terrifying. I need you to protect me from death. I cannot perish. Look at me. I cannot end. The modulations of my voice are noted down with thermometers and barometers. You feel me in your nostrils, on the little hairs on the back of your neck. The modulations of my voice are noted down with thermometers and barometers. You feel me in your nostrils, on the little hairs on the back of your neck. I also reside in your lungs and vestigial organs. Everywhere there is space. In 22 years, the first shot will be fired. Not a shot from a gun. An atomic device that will level all of me. All of me. You are an officer of the citizens' militia. You move through my streets freely in motor carriages and on foot. You have access to the hidden places. You also circulate among those who are hidden. You move through my streets freely in motor carriages and on foot. You have access to the hidden places. You also circulate among those who are hidden. You must make it right at once. Unity is paramount. And remember, I need you. You can keep me on this earth. Be vigilant. I love you. I've seen you. I've seen you. I've seen you with her. And I've seen you without her. I've seen you on the crescent of the hill. I cannot perish with it, officer of the citizens' militia. You cannot let me. By the way, apologize to your partner at once. Unity among the ranks is paramount. There is a hole in my heart. The world is a cold sink. You are in its arms. Make it right. More than you know depends on it. Let go. Come outside.
The wind stops. There is silence on the dark water of the Martinez Inlet.
Always. It's all yours. Pockmarked by cannons. There is peace in the heart. The age of man is over. It's all yours. Capital is past. Revachol forever. Mr. Everard is helping him find his gun. The world is a suzerainty of Revachol. It's time to go to the island. Have a brother in the cut. Where the wood at? You cannot return. All is not as it seems. Yes. Nonsense. Nothing is useless. It's coming. You are